My family asked me if I wanted to go with them to check out the fireworks on the 4th of July. I was 16 years old at the time. I really didn't want to go. Not that I had anything at all against the fireworks, but I really wanted to go out drinking with my friend Matt. We figured that we would break into the abandoned school building in the area. Lots of teenagers would do that, and it was a well-known place for drinking and smoking weed, or the police would leave you alone. I met up with Matt, and he had scored me some weed too. I didn't smoke it all too often, but every once in a while I would. He was a bit worried that, being the 4th, a lot of people would have broken into the school. Whenever we had gone before, we had never come across any other teenagers. Like normal, we snuck through an opening in the fence that surrounded the place. At that point, everything still seemed fine. There wasn't really anything to indicate that anyone else would have been there. We went behind the building, and there was a broken door we used to get in. Still, there was no indication that we weren't alone. We found a room, and we began smoking the weed and drinking a little bit. It was really nice. We weren't too far away from the firework display that we couldn't hear the fireworks going off in the sky though. We were probably in there for over an hour when Matt gave me a really weird look. Did you hear that? I told him that I could hear the fireworks. He shook his head and told me that that wasn't what he meant. I think I heard something in here. I thought maybe he was just enjoying the weed a little too much. He insisted though that he had heard something in another room. When I suggested it was probably just more teenagers drinking, he decided to go look back and see if they wanted to hang out. I really didn't care too much to do that, but I went ahead and went in with him. We were walking down the hallway. I still hadn't heard anything, but Matt even told me again that he heard some noises. I began to think that maybe Matt was messing with me or trying to scare me or something. I had to brace myself, waiting for him to try and scare me or something. I then heard something too. It was a firecracker. It had to be. I may have even heard it before, but mistook it for something from the display. There had to be someone in one of the other rooms laying off fireworks. No big deal really. Fireworks were illegal for just anyone to have. The displays were done by the city. We came here for illegal drinking and illegal smoking, so it made sense someone might come here for some illegal fireworks. There was an open doorway, and there was a little bit of light coming from it. We decided to go through the doorway and introduce ourselves. Matt told me he'd offered them weed so they didn't think we would narc on them or anything. We looked in the doorway and froze. There were two people in the room, but they were dressed as clowns. One was sitting on the floor with a bunch of firecrackers in his hand. The other was standing up and facing the door. He had a huge sparkler in his hand. You know how when someone had a sparkler they write words in the air? Well, he wrote "hi" with the sparkler to us. The other one quickly lit a firecracker and threw it at us. We just turned and ran out. It was too odd. We remembered previously when that whole clown thing was going on a year earlier. We had seen many YouTube videos of clowns doing weird and dangerous stuff. We were terrified at the weirdness of what we saw and what might happen. We looked back once and the clowns had not come out of the room to follow us. But we didn't stick around there though. We left the building in a big hurry. I don't know. I don't think we were in any danger. Like I mentioned, the clowns didn't even try to follow us, but it's just a weird thing to see. This is a pretty freaky thing that happened to me a while back on the 4th of July. The people who live in my neighborhood tend to really go all out during this time. For days, they were laying off fireworks, but on the 4th, everyone brings out the big ones and they do them all night long. I was home alone. My parents had gone to visit relatives for the 4th. I stayed home being a teenager. It was always great when you had the house all to yourself for a while. I didn't have any parties or anything like that though. I just took a few days to watch TV and eat a lot of junk food. On the 4th, it was actually a bit louder than usual. The fireworks started during the day. I couldn't tell what the exact fireworks being used were, but I knew that they were very loud. When it gets to be nighttime, most of the people in the neighborhood go out on their porch to look, watch, or set off their own fireworks. I really didn't care too much to do that though. I just remained in the living room and tried to read a bit. An hour into nightfall, it was loud. The fireworks were constant. I imagine that this is what it would have been like in the Blitz in World War II. I couldn't watch TV and it kept making it very difficult for me to read. As I was sitting there, I suddenly heard a loud noise that definitely was not a firework. It actually sounded like glass breaking in my basement. I immediately looked up from my book. The first thought was that someone was setting off some firework close to my home and it hit and broke that. We had one of those basements that was not really underground on one side, sitting on the side of a hill. Worried that the house might catch on fire, I got up and ran to get our fire extinguisher. I grabbed it, got up, and ran over to the basement door. During this, the fireworks were still going off, of course, so it was a bit nerve-wracking. I ran down the stairs to our fully finished basement and I didn't see a fire. I flipped on the light and almost fell on my ass when I saw someone standing there. There was a broken window and he was over my dad's bar and he was grabbing bottles of liquor and putting them in a bag. He of course noticed when I turned the light on. Turning around, he saw me and at first he did nothing. He was a really big and scary looking dude. I didn't know exactly what to do. He didn't have that problem though. He came towards me, brandishing one of the bottles. Fortunately, even though I was hesitant and he was bigger than me, I remembered that I had brought a fire extinguisher down to the basement with me. Acting though what seemed like impulse, I pulled the lever and sprayed the guy with the hose. It stopped him and nearly knocked the large man off his feet. What was important was that it gave me time to run up the stairs. And close the basement door. I called the police immediately, telling them that someone had broken in. They came, but the guy was long gone by that point. He still stole several bottles of alcohol though. The police filed a report. They didn't catch the guy. Thankfully, he never came back after that. Many of us encounter someone who just grabs our attention in a way that we can't explain. Like they know you from this or a previous life. I come from a long line of people who encounter ghosts, but I myself don't encounter that much. I have in the past, but not often. Tonight, I know I did. This is not fake or made up. Our town is near a beach, and every 4th of July we go to see the fireworks over the water. This year was no exception. Me and my wife arrived and set up chairs, settled in the sand, and chilled out, waiting for the darkness to fall and the fireworks to start. A slight breeze, a perfect beautiful evening. About 20 minutes after we settled, I smelled a waft of what I can only describe as decayed roses on the breeze. Like flowers in a vase that should have been thrown out over a few days ago. It wasn't a bad smell, but just like sweet roses that weren't fresh. Then I saw her. From behind walked a young woman in jean shorts, a t-shirt, and a ball cap. She looked about 25 and had light brown wavy hair coming down about halfway on her back. I was immediately struck by her presence. Not because she was beautiful. I mean, she wasn't ugly. She was pretty, but she looked a bit off. Her face especially looked pretty, but weird, like her features didn't line up or something. She stopped about 15 feet ahead of us and turned around. She looked right at me and smiled, then sat down in the sand. Again, she looked really off. Something was amiss. But I was enchanted by this young woman. I looked at my wife to see what she thought, but got zero reaction. Like, she didn't even see her. I smelled the decayed roses on the wind again. This young woman in jean shorts and ball cap sat down, took off her flip-flops, and looked to the sky. She was sitting perpendicular to us, but facing away. When I thought about it, two more things struck me as very, very odd. She had no electronics, no cell phone. Everyone on the beach was taking selfies and playing with their phones, even the elderly. This young woman had no visible phone, no electronics. Also, her clothes looked straight out of the 70s. I grew up in the 70s, so I know what normal people looked like back then, and she had that 70s look. Totally down to the tomboy jeans and really just everything about her. She seemed very content, just sitting there looking at the sky, and not worried about the cell phones or the beach chairs or anything. Again, I smelled sweet decayed roses in the wind. I took a picture of the whole scene on my cell phone. The pretty sky, the beach, and this strange woman. Shortly after, she got up and walked away behind us. I turned around to see where she went, but she disappeared. When I got home and looked at the pic, I actually was not surprised to see she didn't appear in it. You might think I would have just freaked out, but at some spiritual level, I really didn't expect her image to show up. Just a green orb appeared where she was sitting in the sand. I included the pic here. I'm calm about it because I couldn't tell if she meant no harm. I really believe she was a person who passed away back in the 70s, and she was checking in on me for some reason. I'm racking my brain to try and remember if I knew a young woman who passed away when I was a child back then. I just can't put it together right now.